The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Sierra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Sierra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hello, everyone. We have Amber Frauenholtz back with us. She is a functional nutritionist, and I love her she says things on TikTok like, who lives in the gray area, which I love. She's so real and just down to earth and makes it easy for everyone to do a little bit better. So thank you so much for being here today. She's joining us for our fertility series. So we're in that. If you've been listening, if you haven't gone back, go back to some of the other episodes and check them out. But thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so excited. Thanks for having me. This is a great topic to be chatting about.
Yeah, we're really excited. So today we're going to be focusing mostly on nutrition when trying to conceive, which I think is a really interesting topic because I don't know if it's something that a lot of people are thinking about when they're starting the trying to conceive process. Like, how do I set myself up best for success? Let me be tracking my cycle. Let me be kind of doing these things, making sure, I have maternity leave in order, whatever else, all those things. And they're not really thinking about preparing your body for carrying a human life. So Can you tell us a little bit about where you would start when someone is, beginning that process of preparing for pregnancy?
Yeah, I would love to. And maybe we should even take it a step back and talk about why nutrition is so important, because it is like the foundational piece. And I love that word foundation, because nutrition is like the base on which you build your health on. Because if you think about it, you're trying to get pregnant. And in order to build a baby in your body, it requires a lot of raw materials, like a lot of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, protein, carbs, fat, those kinds of things, fatty acids. And if you don't have the raw materials in place, well, then what's going to happen, right? Like you need them to be there. Now, if you are pregnant and you are worried about that, you can be a little bit comforted because your body will always prioritize your baby, right? So it will just suck you dry of your nutrients and make you feel depleted so that your baby will be fine. But when you're trying to get pregnant, it's the same thing, right? Like you need all of the raw materials in place and you need to be absorbing them in the proper way so that you have the best chance possible of conceiving and then having a healthy pregnancy. And again, that's just kind of like in general for all life's ailments, you start with nutrition, but that's why it's so important. Do you guys have any comments on that?
I do, because I really think that people maybe put more stake into this on their first try at having a baby and pregnancy. But I don't think enough people give enough credit to this between pregnancies. Absolutely. And your body is so stinking depleted postpartum. Yeah. And then you're breastfeeding, maybe if you are, and doing all of these other things. And it's like, you're tired and you're probably not nourishing yourself very well because we always are thinking about everyone else before ourselves and especially our babies. And people are like, well, it's fine. Like, I don't mind having kids back to back. Like, I'll sacrifice my body, but you don't understand like what you're setting yourself up for postpartum and that. So I may be getting a little bit ahead on what you're wanting to talk about, but I think that is so imperative for people to realize it's not just before your first pregnancy, it's before each pregnancy.
Yeah, totally. I love where you're going with this topic because first pregnancy is so different because you actually have capacity. like you are interested in this stuff, and everyone is like super hyper aware of their body, and they are, doing research, and they have time to prep meals, and they are, actually able to do that. But when you're postpartum, yeah, nap. Yes, like all the things. When you're postpartum or in between pregnancies and you have like a toddler, I mean, your capacity is just like, I mean, it's in the dumpster, right? Like, and you're tired, you don't get to nap because you can only sleep when your kid's sleeping. And so
working.
Yes, yeah. And the interesting thing about this is when you talk about fertility nutrition, you can actually just kind of pick it up, move it in the timeline, and drop it right back down into postpartum because it's all the same stuff, actually. In order to replete, again, you want to have all the raw materials before you get pregnant and during pregnancy, and then postpartum, you want to rebuild. So it's all kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was in postpartum with my first baby, I was breastfeeding, I was working, I was doing all of the things, just surviving basically. And then we got surprise pregnant when he was about 14 months and I was still breastfeeding at that point. And that pregnancy was so difficult for me. And I firmly believe a lot of it was because my body was so depleted from being, still somewhat fresh postpartum, not really having the wherewithal to start replenishing my body, and then getting pregnant while I was breastfeeding. And it was a really difficult pregnancy for me because my body was just so done with all of it.
Yeah. And I think I had the opposite because I have a 7.5-year age gap. And so my daughter, like if I needed to take a nap, she'd be like, okay, mommy. And I could, and I really had already gotten all the way over that. And actually I was healthier after I had my daughter than I was before I had my daughter because I cared more. I was older. I was 24 when I had her. Not that 24-year-olds don't care, but I didn't at 24.
I mean, you bounce back quicker when you're younger.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And I was like super fit and I had become an, exercise person. Like I was even teaching exercise classes at one point. So for me, I felt like, wow, first and second pregnancies are pretty similar. But now looking back, now that I'm a birth worker, I'm like, no, they were similar because I was able to completely reset my body between them, even though it was unintentional.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that is like ideal scenario. Like that's best case scenario for sure. A lot of women are not falling or pregnant people are not falling in the best case scenario. And that's actually kind of going back to the intro, why I call myself like on TikTok, a functional nutritionist who lives in the gray area, because I fully understand that you cannot be perfect, especially if you're in like these crazy chaotic times of like early motherhood, working full time. Like you're going to have to accept that you can't reach a level of perfection that you could perhaps before. And that's okay. I mean, that's why we are lucky to live in this modern time where there are supplements, there are tools, that we can bring in. Yes, they're not like as crunchy or, holistic as some practitioners might have you do. But girl, I want to have a Diet Coke, but also like have all of the nutritious foods. And I think that there's room for both. And you can kind of meet yourself where you're at.
And you're so much more likely to fail if you're just so hardcore. And that's what I really loved about working with you too. It was like, you're like, Sierra, you can have the ice cream, just eat the chicken breast first. It was like, I will eat that chicken breast to get the ice cream.
Me too. Me too. Well, should we talk about, when I was thinking about this topic, I kind of came up with like 3 different pillars that we could explore, and we could just see where the conversation takes us. Does that sound good to you guys?
I love it. Let's do it.
Do it.
Okay. So when you think about fertility, 3 main ideas came to mind for me. One was like toxins, like reducing your toxic burden. And that, yes, it includes food, but it also includes like the environment and things around you. And then the second thing is reducing inflammation in your body. So like having the lowest levels of inflammation you possibly can. And that's where all the nutrition stuff really kind of lives, like the food that you eat. And then the third thing is supplements, because you can, add some supplements in. So where should we start with those 3 things?
Let's start with toxins. I think that's a interesting topic, and it'll kind of lead into some of the other ones too.
Yeah. Okay. So Toxins. I have like a love-hate relationship with that word again, because I live in the gray area and I don't really think that there's a moral value on anything that you do. But there are things that serve your health better than others, right? So when you're trying to get pregnant, we do want to have your body just be in like quote unquote the cleanest state it can be. So you have a better chance, right, of having that healthy egg drop and actually fertilizing it and like getting pregnant. And in order to do that, your hormones need to be cycling in a very optimal manner, right? And one of the things we can do for our hormones is make sure our liver is not burdened with extra toxins that it has to filter out of your system. So the liver is kind of an amazing organ. I mean, it does like, I think there's like over 500 functions that it performs in the body, but one of its main functions is it acts as a filter, right? And so when you, drink alcohol or have a bunch of caffeine or, you're using like bleach or, these kind of toxic cleaners out there, it gets into your system either through your skin or you're ingesting it or whatever, or you're breathing it in. And it's the liver's job to like filter that out because that stuff doesn't really serve your body, right? And the more toxic load you put on the liver, the less efficient it becomes at doing that. The liver is also involved in hormone balance, right? Like it is important to make sure you have the right levels of estrogen floating around. It helps detoxify like excess cortisol from your system. So if your liver is too busy focusing on all of the toxic load, then it doesn't really have the capacity, right, for the hormones. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is like endocrine disruptors, right? Because there's like chemicals out there in the universe that act as our body views them as hormones. Like they kind of look very similar to the hormones that we actually have circling around in our systems. And again, if you have something kind of mimicking hormones and you're not actually getting your hormones, then you're not going to be optimal, right, with your hormone state. So when I think of reducing toxins, it's like there is a food component, but then there's the environment component. And again, I live in the gray area. So it's kind of a thing where if you have beauty products that are not necessarily clean, and you can look this stuff up on like the EWG website and see how they rate, then as you run out of product, you just kind of start slowly replacing it with products that have better stuff. So you don't need to go into your cabinets and like throw everything away because that would just be ludicrously, is that a word? Expensive.
It is now.
It is now.
That would just be throwing everything away and wasting money is what I call that. I'm way too frugal to be just tossing things that still have stuff in them.
Totally. And so as you run out, you can just find some cleaner products. So like, Cleaner is one of my favorite brands. Maybe you guys have heard of them, Branch Basics.
Yep.
I love them. It's all like plant-based. I'm not totally sure how they make their formula, but it's very safe. I mean, you can wash your baby in this soap, plus your clothes, plus your dishes. I mean, it's great. And it's a concentrate. So you just make, different formulas and you can use it everywhere in your house. I love that. And then for like beauty products, I love Jane Iredale and then Merit. And then I think there's a company called Dime that I use some of their stuff. There's lots of clean beauty products out there these days. And then the other piece of it is food, right? So if you have the capacity and you have the budget and you are able to secure more organic products in your house, that is the ideal because we're reducing our pesticide load when we do that. But again, everyone lives on a spectrum and some people may not be able to afford all organic food, but that's okay. You just kind of pick and choose where you can make changes.
And even choosing like, a few things here and there can be helpful. Like I don't buy organic fruit because my children go through fruit like there's no tomorrow. And if I were to do organic fruit, I think I would go into debt. So we do organic other things, like we do organic milk for everything. We do, some of those things that they also drink a lot of. We do that. And then we're intentional about making sure we wash everything and doing all of that sort of stuff, but kind of picking the things that you can financially make sense. Organic eggs right now are like $15 a dozen, but
absolutely
we
not.
can figure out.
That is crazy. That is absolutely
crazy. Yeah.
Insane. Yeah, I love that approach. And then the other, aspect of it is ultra processed foods. Like, can you also kind of move those ultra processed foods out of your diet and just focus on real unprocessed items? Did it walk on land, grow from the ground, swim in the sea? And it doesn't matter if they're organic or not. Like if you are able to, take out some kind of processed stuff that you've been eating and replace it with chicken breast that's not organic, that's still way better, right? Because it's like a whole food.
So chicken breast, maybe not Cheez-Its.
Right. Yeah. But again, there's no moral value on, food, good or bad. It's just there's food that serves you better, and real whole unprocessed foods are going to serve you way better for a lot of reasons in this journey than, the processed items.
Well, I've got to say, as someone with anxiety and that has to be really careful about what I put my energy into, you can go too far with this and drive yourself nuts. Yeah. So I can't think about, sorry, I just tapped that. I can't think about too many of these things for myself because I know that my mental health will wane if I'm constantly focusing on oh my gosh, there's toxins in that and whatever. I try to make the whole food choices and do those things. And every once in a while I still have a Z-bar because my kids had it in the snack bag and I was hungry. But if it overwhelms you to think about, to me, just pick things, kind of like Sam said, even if it's not because of a financial reason, if you're just okay, I've got to I'm going to pick these 3 categories or these 3 things and I'm going to switch them out. And that's all that I can do. It's better than doing nothing.
Yeah. 100%. Little hinges swing big doors. So just pick, 1 or 2 things, and the more things, every little thing is going to have a benefit. So you pick one thing that has a benefit. If you decide to pick another thing, you get another layer of a benefit, right? And it just kind of compounds on itself. So you're going to get benefits from doing one thing. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So don't put pressure on yourself if you don't have
Love that. I feel like that's just a really logical and compassionate approach to making these changes, because finding those little things will make a difference. You don't have to go all in or nothing.
Can little hinges swing big doors? I've never heard that before. I'm going to be using that. It's stolen currently. Sorry, but I just took that. That's awesome. Great. I love that.
Yeah. I end every presentation I do with a slide that says little hinges swing big doors, because I just spent, 10 minutes going over all these things that could change. I'm do not freak out.
That's a great visual.
Yeah.
It makes it a little more doable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that's the toxic load. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that before we move on to inflammation?
Oh, that was great.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay. All right. Well, inflammation, I think, is a good umbrella term to use for this, but it really is just eating to have optimal function in your system, right? And if we do have any kind of chronic inflammation coming from your gut, coming from your, blood sugar instability, coming from a chronic illness or whatever it might be, we want to try to mitigate that as much as possible, because that inflammation is part of the spider web of your system. I like to use this visual for hormones, but it kind of works just for your entire body. You can visualize our body systems as a spider web. And if any one thing, a single thread in the web gets pulled, the whole web will shift, right? And so you're going to get, ramifications throughout the whole system. And inflammation is one of those things that's really tightly wound in the web. And if it gets pulled, you're going to get some issues happening in your hormone health, in your digestive system. There's just lots of things that can come from that.
I think you've done this before. You have all these great visuals. I'm seeing this spider web in my brain being pulled from side to side. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, when you go to the doctor too, I feel it's really siloed, because they're all specialized, they have a specialty and they're not really thinking in terms of the spider web. And so it can also be really frustrating on a fertility journey, because you're they will tell you to focus on this one thing, but they are kind of leaving out all the other things that thread is attached to, and you're missing a part of the picture. And so it is nice to kind of take a step back and just all right, the whole picture, body does not work in silos. Doctors might work in silos, but my body does not. So how are my choices impacting everything?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay. I think we don't have time for me to go into every single topic that I possibly could for inflammation. But one of the big things for fertility, especially, is antioxidant intake. Right. So increasing antioxidants, especially if there is inflammation present, because that creates oxidative, stress in your body. That's things like increasing your berry intake, your veggies. And I'm not any berries, any veggies. I don't care what it is. Just more fiber from plant matter, fruits, veggies. Then there's antioxidants and things like green tea and chocolate, in legumes. They're kind of found all over the place. And then when we get to the supplement section, there'll be more recommendations there for that. But eating those antioxidant rich foods are going to be really important. piggybacking off of that, it's just nutrient density, right? So that's what you're really trying to go for, is getting as much nutrient content into your system as you can without going crazy about it, right? So the easiest way to do this is just eating more real food, because that's where all of the nutrients are found. And before you know it, if you're just focusing on adding real foods in your diet, some of the other stuff just kind of falls off, just because you just don't have capacity or the room in your stomach, right? So like eat more if you're focusing on nutrient density and eating real food.
Right. Helps moderation, I guess, a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Like a balanced approach. I think the other big topic in this section would be blood sugar. We may have talked about this on the last time I did a podcast with you guys, because it is such an important component, especially for hormone regulation. And that's what fertility really is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of our listeners, a lot of people we've worked with have issues with things like PCOS, or, some of those like insulin resistance sort of things, where blood sugar is a really big part of that.
Yeah, especially if you are trying to get pregnant and you have PCOS, you're going to be dealing with insulin resistance, right? And this component of it is going to be really important. With blood sugar, so just for the listeners, when you eat carbs, like carbohydrate-rich foods, so breads, pastas, cookies, like that kind of stuff, but also, fruit and, veg, like those are carbs too. Mm-hmm. It turns into sugar in your system, in your bloodstream, glucose. Your body sends insulin out. Insulin tells your cells to open the door. Glucose goes in. It creates ATP, energy, cellular energy, and that's how we function, right? But there's a problem when it's either too high, because that's inflammatory. If it's too low, that's also not good. It's very stressful on the body. And there's also a problem if you're swinging back and forth between those two states too often. So we want to keep it just like super regulated. The way that you do that is by just eating smart. So kind of combining your foods in the way that makes sense. Don't eat naked carbs. So if you are craving like a muffin or something, by all means, you can have that muffin, but we want to make sure the muffin is wearing its like protein hat, its fiber jacket, its fat coat or whatever over it, because that regulates that glucose spikes. It slows down the gastric emptying of the food, and it makes the glucose spike go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Definitely. And so many people think about this when they've been diagnosed with gestational diabetes when they're already pregnant. And it's like, I'm not saying necessarily that you could have changed it before, but it's like, we only pay attention to it when it's broken. Yeah. And Sam and I have kind of joked, like, if everyone would eat the way that gestationally diabetic people are told to eat, they'd actually be healthier. It's actually just how we should eat, Yes. But we only eat that way when we're like up against if we don't do this, then it's going to change something else that we really wanted. And nobody's paying it. Most people are not paying attention to this before they're getting pregnant. And doctors aren't talking about this. They're not talking about this at fertility clinics usually. They're talking about all of the medical things that you could do to intervene rather than the front end things that you can be doing on your own. If anyone hasn't listened to our birth story with Courtney, she talks about this. She's like, I had so many issues getting pregnant and we did IVF and all these things. And next time, I'm not going to do all of those things first. I have so many things now that I've learned about diet and exercise and like just the way that you're treating your body that I know will make an impact this time.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And this is just so foundational to health. And also we live in modern times, and, it's just really hard to step out of your house and not be bombarded with like all the marketing and like all the treats and all the things. That's just like the environment we live in. And so it's really hard for us to say no to that when you're just constantly faced with it. Our brains are programmed to like seek nourishment, and we love sweet things, and it's just easy to fall into that trap essentially. But everyone would do much better with their health if they could balance their blood sugar levels. So the number one thing is avoid naked carbs. Number two thing is to eat every 2 to 4 hours, especially if you're someone who's on the roller coaster and you're feeling high energy and then you crash and you're craving carbs and you go eat again, you crash again a couple hours later. The way to stop that is by eating a high protein snack or a meal like every 2 to 4 hours. Avoiding caffeine on an empty stomach, that can be really helpful too, because caffeine will spike your blood sugar. It tells your body to release cortisol and adrenaline to wake up. And what those things do is that they release blood sugar, right?
I'm laughing because Samantha's so guilty. I saw the little smirk come across her face. If you're watching the YouTube video, you know. And this woman is probably currently drinking her coffee on an empty stomach, if I had to guess.
I had a breakfast sandwich this morning. It was
okay. So this is the one day. Yeah. Okay, sure. Today's the one day. No, I'm just laughing because I know that she's like, oh man, I'm not supposed to drink my coffee before I do that. I drink my caffeine with the vital collagen protein in it. Is that okay?
Yes. So that's what I was going to say. If you really want to have coffee or like tea or whatever without having food first, then a hack you can do is add some kind of protein powder in there, and that will slow it down. But it is better to have like a little something in your system. The exception to the rule is if you're about to exercise, right? So you can have caffeine on an empty stomach because you are going to go expel the energy, the blood sugar that's streaming in the gym, right? So it's not inflammatory in that sense.
Yeah, Sierra. I'm fine.
Oh, sure. Are you going to the gym right after your coffee? What's funny is neither of us are trying to get pregnant. These are good things for everybody.
Yes.
But also, if you're trying to get pregnant, they're even more important.
Mm-hmm. And postpartum, like this is the biggest recommendation postpartum because you are dealing with lack of sleep and your blood sugar is going to be crazy because when you don't sleep, your hormones that tell you whether or not you're hungry go wild and you just crave carbs, right? Your body's like, I need quick energy, and you just get off on that roller coaster ride and you cannot get off, or you get on and then you can't get off. You got what I'm saying here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I guess there's so many things you can do for blood sugar. That's just scratching the surface. If you are someone who's struggling with, PCOS, then there are supplements too that you can bring in to help. There's things like myo-inositol powder that's really helpful. You can drink apple cider vinegar mixed with water before high carb meals. That will lower blood sugar. So there's lots of stuff. So I do encourage you to like seek out. There's a book by the Glucose Goddess, I think is her like thing on Instagram. I don't remember what her credentials are, but she wrote a book all about blood sugar stability, and that one's really helpful.
Interesting. But it sounds like for the most part, if you are someone who has PCOS and you're trying to get pregnant and dealing with this like insulin resistance situation, that it would probably be beneficial to like kind of get the full picture by working with someone and having that more individualized care.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for anyone, honestly, because I'm just giving you guys generalized information, but really nutrition is bio-individual to the person. So I think it is, if you're on a journey, you're struggling, seek out support, do some functional testing, do some lab work, try to figure out where am I actually nutrient deprived? And then you can supplement smartly because you actually know, where is the inflammation coming from? You can do like some gut health testing. You can look at your hormones and you can really make a customized, protocol to impact your specific scenario. But again, all these things that are going to be helpful across the board for everybody.
We actually have a family that I just had a baby with. It was our second baby with them. And she, at her postpartum visit with me, which is like, I don't even think baby was a week old yet. She was talking to me about whether or not they're going to have another baby. And she's like, my doctor said that I need to wait a year to be able to do that, to help my body like get back to normal before I get pregnant again. And she's someone who has a history of PMADs, postpartum mood and anxiety disorders, with the first one. The second one, she seems to be doing like leaps and bounds better. But she was like, is it really that important, Sierra? Like, I would rather get pregnant in like 5 or 6 months than, just pull the goalie, like take away any birth control. And if we get pregnant, we get pregnant. And I was like, well, if you're going to do that, I really recommend working with, and I actually gave them your information and that was after we've already scheduled this thing. It's like, I really think it's so important to get that exactly personalized view because we don't know what would be best for her without her getting that kind of once over. And you can do all of these things that you're saying, even if you can't afford to go with a functional nutritionist or whatever, you can still do all of these things and you're going to be better off than you would have been. But being able to have that really individualized view can be so helpful. And that will, I don't even know if it's possible within 5 or 6 months to get back where you need to be, but you're sure going to be in a better place than if you didn't go get help.
Totally. I mean, and nowadays, I wish I had maybe done a little bit more research on like different companies you can reach out to on your own. Because I know that they more and more over the past 5 years since I've been doing this, there have been more companies come out on the market where you can order your own lab work and they'll do an analysis. So it's a lot less expensive than working with someone like me, because if you go to your PCP and you ask for these labs, they may order some, but they are not going to analyze them with an optimization lens, right? They're just going to look at them and be like, are you sick? Do I need to prescribe you a medication? And that's not really useful for something like this, because for this, you want to really get nitpicky and be like, what is optimal? How can I get my body to the optimal place? And that is a totally different viewpoint. And again, if you can't work with someone like me, then there are companies out there that have panels and stuff you can order these days. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's super cool. Just that people can, I love that we're getting to a place where people can start taking charge of their own health and doing what they feel is best without having to like kind of go through all the red tape. It's so big.
I know. Ideally, I wish we would get to a place where like all this stuff is just covered. You just go to the doctor and they help you with this, but we're not there yet. Who knows?
Because if somebody gets the information on their own and they do their own lab work, now they have the information, but do they really know how to fix it or get past that now? So if you don't have somebody analyzing the data and you don't have a background, you're going to be having to become a Google functional nutritionist for yourself and taking a lot of time to learn.
ChatGPT. You're like, what does that mean?
ChatGPT. What am I doing?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay. Anyways, so kind of going back to inflammation, again, we probably don't have time to go over all this stuff, but blood sugar is a key one. Nutrient density, of course. We talked about antioxidants that goes with nutrient density. And then other things are just like making sure you're getting enough protein, right, in your diet. And again, we can sit here and debate like the perfect amount of protein for everyone, but I can confidently say, like, if you are a grown adult female who is cycling, you need at least 100 grams of protein a day. Right. And you should do an audit. Yeah. You should do an audit on yourself, track for like 3 to 5 days and actually weigh and measure. And you will see truly how much protein you're getting. And it's pretty shocking because most people, when they come to work with me, they're eating closer to like 50 grams.
Yeah.
And then hydration, of course, right? So drink your water, add minerals so that you can actually be hydrated on a cellular level. So fancy electrolyte powders are wonderful, but you can also just add like unrefined sea salt to your water, and that will help you absorb the water too.
I remember that was one of the things you told us when we were working with you, and it was so helpful to be able to hear that and be able to do that, because I have noticed a big difference since I've been doing that, just adding a tiny bit of sea salt to my water every day, and that's been huge. And also
girl,
I like it better. It tastes better.
Don't start.
Type A people like me, how much would you add to like, like one of these?
Yeah.
Like
so I'm holding up, if you're listening to this, we're holding up like a Stanley cup.
Yeah, one of these. I'm on like an audio podcast. Sorry, non-YouTube people.
Really just a pinch, right? So just like a pinch of sea salt. That's all you need. Your body can totally withstand more than that. So if you want to make it a little extra salty, that's fine. But just a pinch is fine. Yeah.
Cool.
Love it.
All right. Should we move on to supplements?
Supplements. Yes, let's do it.
Supplements. I feel like this is a hot button topic. Like a lot of people have like big opinions about supplements.
Like my husband.
Yeah.
My husband's like, you don't need to do that. You're just gonna pee it out. He always tells me, you're just gonna pee it out.
I mean, there's truth to that, right? Supplements are supplemental. That's why they are called supplements, because if you don't have the basics down, the stuff that we just talked about, like you are just going to pee them out. You're not like really using the benefits. They are in addition to all of the other stuff. Then you can actually make a difference with supplements. But if you're not doing all the other foundational pieces, you're not going to get a whole lot of benefits from supplements, unfortunately.
Bummer.
Yeah.
You can't just fix it with taking that?
I wish. Man, the amount of times I've tried a new supplement being like, this is it. This is going to be the thing. And then I'm like, oh, no, it's not. God, I have to like go back to basics. That sucks. But yeah, okay. So supplements are wonderful tools that we can use to help put us in a good position. I will say, if your gut is not working properly, if you're not pooping daily, if you are experiencing constant bloating, if you're, feeling acid refluxy, if you've got loose stools, there's something going on with your digestion, then you are probably not absorbing all the minerals that you could be from your supplements too. So that is something to think about there and fixing your gut health. All right. So prenatal. We all know we should be on a prenatal. The rule of thumb that I like to use when I'm determining whether a prenatal is high quality or not is you turn around the label and you look to see what form of folate is in there, right? So if it is methylated folate, that is like the actual natural form of B9, right? If it says folic acid, that's lower quality. That is a synthetic substitute for natural folate. And we actually want the folate. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb.
When you said everyone knows we should be taking a prenatal, but I don't think everyone knows that you should be taking it when you're trying to get pregnant. Most people know you're supposed to take one once you're pregnant, but a lot of people don't realize, and also postpartum. And the ones that I take, I love the one, I'm going to shout them out. I don't care. It's I Am Nurtured. I love those vitamins. And they even have a mama add-on. Like you can take their prenatal and then you can add on this to like help enhance it for postpartum. So yes, you should be taking this when you're trying to get pregnant.
Yes, 100%. Take it when you're trying to get pregnant. I love I Am Nurtured. That's actually what I take too as my multivitamin. I am done having babies, but it doesn't mean you can't use a prenatal.
I don't even have a uterus. I'll take an I Am Nurtured. It's the only thing that I can use that doesn't make me sick. I can take it on an empty stomach and it doesn't make me sick, which says a lot about the product and how pure it is and that your body can use it.
I love it. My only complaint is that the tablets smell a little wonky.
Like fish food. I open it and I apologize to my husband if he's in the bathroom. I'm like, I'm sorry if it stinks for a second.
So if you, in the course of you taking that prenatal, you get pregnant and all of a sudden you're sick, that smell when you open the car, I mean, I'm kind of speechless actually, like thinking about what that experience might feel like. So if that is you, then there is another brand that I do like called Needed. And I'm sure you guys have heard of Needed. Yeah. Needed they even have like a fertility bundle where you go there and everything's kind of wrapped up. They have like the prenatal, they have the other ones that I'm going to list out here all in a bundle. And that's really nice too. You just like order one thing and it comes to you. All right. So we want to just like get our nutritional bases covered. The reason why a prenatal is, again, if you get pregnant, you want to have all that stuff there. We want one that has folate in it and, zinc, selenium, all of those other things. They're going to be wrapped up into your prenatal. So you don't need to worry about them specifically. The next one is CoQ10. So that is it's a master antioxidant essentially. And it's really great for egg quality, egg health, but also sperm quality. So if your partner, you can consider putting them on some support, CoQ10 is going to be great. Needed has another fertility package for men specifically. So you can go look at that. Omega-3 fatty acids. So I definitely recommend getting at least 1,000 milligrams of EPA, DHA. I don't really care what brand. I like Nordic Naturals. If you go to like Whole Foods, you can find them there. And then there's other like high quality ones, but we want at least 1,000 milligrams of that. We want to check iron levels. So go get your blood drawn, make sure your iron and ferritin look okay. And the only time we would supplement is if they weren't, right? So if you're anemic. Same with vitamin D. So you would get your blood work done, look at your vitamin D levels. If they're low, then you would supplement with vitamin D. You don't need it if you're not low.
And this is an interesting one for me because I am the opposite of a lot of pregnant people in that I have a thing that makes it so that I have too much iron in my body. So I have to be really intentional about when I was pregnant. I had to be really careful about what supplements I took because I couldn't have anything that had iron in it because I wasn't menstruating during pregnancy. And so my iron levels can get really, really high when I'm pregnant, which can also be, bad for my liver. So
you have to give blood regularly to keep that down.
No, not during pregnancy. Once I am postmenopausal, then I will have that pleasure.
Yes, because you're getting rid of blood every month when you're cycling.
I get rid of blood every month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Super fun.
That's a tough one. So one of the good things about the Needed prenatal is there's no iron, and then they have an additional iron supplement and even on their website, it will give the ferritin levels from your blood work and you can compare. You have your lab work, you can look and see, and it will tell you how much iron you need, and then you can order that separately. So that's really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The other thing is magnesium. Even though your prenatal will have additional, magnesium in there, our bodies can use a lot of magnesium. So doing an additional magnesium supplement, highly recommend. Now, beware, like there's all different kinds of magnesium, out there. And one of the most common ones is natural calm. So it's like a powder, you see it at Target, and it's marketed as like, it calms you down before bed. That's true, but it also is a stool softener, right? So you're going to be pooping when you take that magnesium citrate. And because it is a stool softener, you're not absorbing as much magnesium because it's just going right through you. Right. So I like magnesium glycinate for this, for hormones specifically, or magnesium L-threonate. So either those two forms are what I recommend. And you take it before bed because it does help you sleep.
And for some people in that third trimester, maybe that stool softener is clutch. So
yeah, and you can actually combine because there are two different kinds of magnesium. You can totally do natural calm and like magnesium glycinate. That's what I took to the hospital actually with me when I gave birth. Instead of taking their stool softener, I just did a bunch of magnesium citrate.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Life hack.
Yeah.
I love this little hack.
There.
Because a lot of people don't want to take a medication.
Yeah. That is a clutch one to take when you're traveling though, because people get constipated. So just bring your magnesium citrate and you'll be fine. Anyways, the last two things. If you are under a lot of stress, if you're someone who is like dealing with some adrenal health issues, adaptogens might be helpful too. Those are herbs, plants that have been shown to support your adrenal health. And again, it's kind of specific to the person. Things like rhodiola, lion's mane mushroom, ashwagandha, like you have to stop some of these when you get pregnant, FYI, but they're good to have while you're trying to get pregnant because it helps just like keep your cortisol levels in check. Needed has a stress support one that I think is really nice. Again, if you order that bundle, it's just like on there. I'm not an affiliate for Needed, by the way. I just like their products. And then lastly, a probiotic.
But if they want to sponsor us, they can.
Please, yes, you're welcome.
Like everything we say, like we give so many free advertisements on this podcast.
Probiotics, if your gut health is needing some help, then that could be beneficial, but also just eating fermented foods, right? And getting enough fiber, that can be great. And then the last little bit I will mention is if you are someone struggling with insulin resistance, there are other supplements that you can incorporate, right? Like things like myo-inositol, that's great for increasing that sensitivity to insulin. You could even use like berberine and other things like that, herbal remedies for this. So just know that those are out there for you if you need them.
That's awesome. Yeah. So just more reason to work with somebody and kind of figure out what is best for you, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I love it. Are there any other supplements that you would say people should definitely be looking at?
I mean, again, if you're not getting like specific to you, probably just external things like protein powders, like having those on hand to help meet your protein goals. And then electrolyte powders are nice to have because they are flavorful and they're kind of nice, to have in the afternoon or something or before a workout. But other than that, those are like the top ones, I think.
I'll also say, I think even if you're not struggling with fertility, you don't have to be struggling with fertility to prepare for pregnancy.
Right.
And so you doing all of these things to prepare for pregnancy is still really beneficial. And it also helps to create a habit before you become pregnant. Because once you become pregnant, you're a little bit tired, you're a little bit all these things. Well, maybe you would be less than that if you had prepared prenatally for what's about to come. And you're already used to the habit of taking these things, doing these things, eating the protein. Because if you are like feeling icky and yucky in the beginning of pregnancy, and you're like having to eat and do all of these things, it's really difficult to get that amount in. So having that not be new when you get pregnant is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Having those habits ingrained. One last thing I will say that we totally forgot to mention at the top of the episode is we're all not doctors, by the way. So this is just for
we have a disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast.
So I want to make sure we got that covered. This is not medical advice. This is just for your information.
Did you ever watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the show?
Just a little bit.
At the very end of that show, there's a little doctor that comes up on the screen. It's like a
production
cartoon. Yeah, it's like a production. And it's like, not a doctor. At the very end, it's not even applicable to that show. But all the time when we talk to our clients, in my head, I'm going, not a doctor. Because and whatever I'm saying is not medical advice, not a doctor. So I love it.
I do the same thing.
We're on the same wavelength here with that. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This is amazing. I love that we're helping people prepare for pregnancy. I feel like we talk so much about pregnancy and postpartum, but we don't talk about the before and getting ready for that. So this is really valuable. If anyone wants to reach out to you and potentially work with you or ask you some questions, can you tell them how to get a hold of you? And we will also put this in the show notes.
Absolutely. So I'm really active on Instagram. That is where I talk to people. You can find me at Amber Dawn, DAWN_wellness. So Amber Dawn Wellness. And just send me a DM and I'm happy to chat. You can find me at amberdawnwellness.com. And there's lots of free resources out there for you, like guides that explains more in depth around this stuff. So go check it out.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. We can't wait to have you back to talk about something else super cool.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.